The UFC 317 press conference just wrapped up, and it made me realize that we all took the trash talk era of MMA and the UFC for granted. There's been a lot of discussion about why the UFC seems to be falling off, from Dana White failing to promote fighters, a lower quality product, worse cards, the UFC constantly going to the apex, them not delivering on the fights that the fans want. But one of the things that a lot of people aren't discussing, and this is something that I've sort of been thinking about recently, but the press conference at UFC 317 really made me understand that this is a big factor. But where is all the trash talk? I'm actually asking you guys to help me here. Who in today's day and age actually talks shit? When you actually think about the fighters that may talk a little bit, it's like Ilia Topuria and Islam Makhachev, and it's purely competitive trash talk, and that's it. And this is one of the reasons why I root for Ilia Topuria. You know, people are like rooting for Oliveira, and don't get me wrong, I love Charles Oliveira, but he's had his run. He's had a phenomenal career. He's taken a couple of L's since then. I want Ilia to keep this momentum going. We're on the topic of trash talk. He actually talks a little bit of shit and makes things entertaining, okay? And he doesn't try hard to do that, but I wouldn't even consider him like a big trash talker. Makhachev, he's a guy that likes to talk a little bit of smack on purely competitive things. Like he was telling Volkanovski Australia doesn't have wrestling. That's what I'm talking about. That level of trash talk, it's very entertaining. That's one of the reasons why Islam Makhachev is one of my favorite fighters and why I think he's underratedly entertaining. But like, think about all the stars that were being pushed in the late 2010s, Adesanya, Colby Covington, these guys were talking shit. Adesanya going into the Whitaker fight, lots of trash talk. Adesanya going into the Strickland fight, the Duplessis fight. Adesanya going into the Paulo Costa fight, lots of trash talk. The Marvin Vettori fight, lots of trash talk. Colby Covington, right? Him trash talking RDA, him trash talking Kamaru Usman. Before that, obviously, was the true trash talking era. Michael Bisping, Conor McGregor, Chael Sonnen. You had TJ Dillashaw, Cody Garbrandt. There was that was like the thing that you were supposed to do. And the reason why I say we all took it for granted is because back then it was seen as a little bit cringe. And people were like, dude, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of all the flash. I just want to see the fights. And it was like a hardcore take to say that I don't like all of this nonsense trash talk. People are trying too hard. They're cringy. Oh, Kevin Lee thinks he's Conor McGregor. He's cringy. But given what we're going through now, I mean, none of these guys are putting in any effort. And I've heard Tom Aspinall say that the idea of trash talking and trying to be this personality that you're not actually like in real life, it sort of makes his skin crawl. And for Aspinall, I actually think that he doesn't need to trash talk in order to get people to root for him. Obviously, his fight style is phenomenal, but he's just a really likable guy. Even in his interviews, he's someone that you want to listen to. He's a pretty smart guy. He's well-spoken. He's interesting. And some fighters are just interesting. You want to listen to their interviews, but that's not the norm. The average fighter is going to be a little bit more boring. You know what I mean? And for Aspinall, he doesn't need to do it, but I feel like some of these guys should be doing it. I think one of the reasons why fighters are no longer trying to promote themselves with that style, talking a little bit of shit, making people care about the storyline, adding a conflict. I think the reason why a lot of fighters stopped doing that is because a lot of fans used to shun the fighters that did that, like Kevin Lee back in the day. And I think that they look at that and they saw the fans saying that you're a wannabe Conor McGregor. This is so cringe. You'll never be like Conor. I mean, they were even saying that about Ilya, leading into the fight with Volkanovski, leading into the fight with Max Holloway. And I think a lot of fighters looked at that and they were like, yeah, the fans don't fuck with that and we don't need to do it anymore. The UFC fans just want solid fights and that's it. And now you look at the stars that they push. They have the same look, right? O'Malley, they have the look of someone that could be charismatic, but they're literally rocking the personalities of fucking rocks, okay? They've got the personalities of rocks, and it sucks, and there's no effort. And listen, this is your opportunity to get people hyped. Like, why do you think you're here at a press conference? This is your opportunity. You're being asked a question, and don't get me wrong, the questions from the reporters don't help. The questions fucking suck, okay? Like, these people will go in there unaware, they should be aware of this, but they're totally unaware that the last 4 days of these fighters' lives have been spent doing interview after interview after interview. Okay, they've answered the same question. The fans have been watching the press conference, the media scrums leading into the major press conference. Like, they're totally unaware that maybe I should ask something a little bit different than, what would it mean to get the win this weekend, man? What would it mean to get the win this weekend, man? You know, it's like, dude, we need to hire people to insert trap doors underneath the seats and have it be like, you know, in Austin Powers, where you press a button and they just fall in the trap door into the alligator pit or the shark pit or whatever. Like, we honestly need that, because how else are you supposed to stop these reporters from asking those questions? And also, as I said, the reporters don't help. The reporters are either just completely oblivious to what's going on all week. Like, they're just terrible at doing their job. They have no social awareness. They're not very smart. They don't understand that these fighters have been asked those same questions a billion times earlier in the week, and we all know the fucking answers. And they also don't understand that, listen, this is to sell the fights. Let's get them hype. The other annoying thing is they just want a few seconds on the screen, and they want to have an eye contact moment with the fighter where they can build some rapport and be their friend. They don't want to create conflict, because they don't want the fighter to associate the reporter with picking fights or instigating, right? And that's kind of the fucking purpose of a press conference when it comes to selling a fight, by the way. It's to, you know, pick fights. It's to get people riled up. But the reporters are like, no. I want to be friends with them, and I want the fighter to make eye contact with me and see my friendly, smiley face, so that when they pass me during fight week next time, I can have a little handshake and do like a little fist bump with them by the water cooler. Yeah, man. Hey, Ilya. And Ilya will be like, yo, what's up, man? And he barely even knows who he is. They live for that moment. Man. That's what they're caught up with. But also the fighters themselves, I'm telling you, because of all the fan backlash against the trash talking era, cringe, Chael Sonnen and Michael Bisping and Conor McGregor and Colby Covington, cringy. Because that was the main criticism, that everyone was trying to be like Conor, and that we didn't need that. And if you're a true fan of the sport, you don't even like that. Fighters took that, okay, and they started running with it. And now it's like uncool to trash talk. Now every fighter is telling you in interviews that, yeah, I don't like to be someone that I'm not. That's not cool, man. I like to be myself, man. And the problem is, some of these guys are boring, okay? Now listen, they're athletes. Their job is not to be a professional comedian. Their job is not to be an actor. But I guess what I'm saying is, of course, you're not going to feel totally comfortable in front of the media to speak the same way with the same level of comfort that you would be speaking with your family and your friends. I understand that. But that's what I'm saying. Because there's this idea that trash talking isn't cool anymore, they're not putting effort into it at all. And they're not going to press conferences or media days taking into account, okay, I might be a little bit nervous in front of the media, but let me try to play my personality up a little bit. Let me try to, you know, create a little bit of a storyline here. Maybe I'll just, you know, talk very confidently, or I'll just say, instead of, I look forward to showing up and winning the fight, instead of saying that, I look forward to knocking this dude out. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to run through him. Okay? But again, it's like, maybe they don't want to take the heat from the fans, because as soon as a fighter says that, I'm going to run through this guy, all the fans are like, oh, I can't wait to see this guy get humbled. Or, man, this guy's such a cringy trash talker. So it's like, yeah, there's this terrible loop where it's like a fighter trash talks, they get shit on by the fans. They see fans shit on fighters that try to trash talk. Therefore, they don't try to trash talk, and they don't put any effort into trying to be entertaining on the mic. You know what I mean? And again, you don't have to really do that much. You don't have to spend all night writing and rehearsing your lines before the press conference. Just get up there, and instead of saying, hey, I'm happy to be here, just say, I am going to knock this dude out. If you could just, you know, make a little bit of an effort, it could go a long way. And I've said this in the past, but the press conferences these days are almost just pointless. We already have the media day scrums. They do plenty of interviews over Zoom or whatever. They're on podcasts. They have social media. And the reporters are they're just so unbelievably fucking stupid that they can't ask any good questions. So the press conferences themselves just are pointless. It's kind of a waste of time. I mean, imagine actually going to a press conference. You want to see some action. You want to see some conflict. You want to see, people get riled up. And these are the answers. So Charles, Ilia Topuria said he's going to go out there and knock you out in round 1. What do you think about that? I'm not going to do a Portuguese answer, by the way, but I'll be the translator. I really like that, and Ilia is a great guy, and I just am here to show up. I'm just here to fight. I'm just here to show up and fight, and yep, I really have a lot of respect for him, but we will see on Saturday night. Okay, let's get to Ilia. I honestly, the reporters were so cringy. I don't even want to do a fucking impression of the Ilia Topuria reporters. They were so bad, but like, I don't know. It's like, why do we even have the fucking press conferences? They're a waste of time. And the fighters don't even try to trash talk anymore because the fans convinced them that it wasn't cool and that we didn't need it. So why are we doing the press conferences? We already get all the fucking answers earlier on in the week. There's zero hype. Even a couple of years ago, 2023, Sean Strickland was massive. That was the biggest Sean Strickland ever was when it came to star power alone. The beginning of 2024 when he fought Dricus, 2023 when he fought Adesanya, and even before he fought Adesanya, even in 2022, leading up to the Alex Pereira fight, the fight before the Alex Pereira fight, Strickland was going viral because he was going off the cuff at these press conferences. He was going, off the rails. He was just saying whatever came to mind, and it didn't really matter exactly what he was saying, but he just had a personality, and he was interesting to listen to, right? Same thing with Adesanya. I said this right before Adesanya fought Sean Strickland. I said, I think his title reign is coming to an end because he's either going to, have a tough fight with Strickland. Maybe he'll win, but he's definitely going to lose to Duplessis at least. That's what I was saying at the time. And I said, even though I'm not the biggest fan of Adesanya, I think that we should not take for granted what kind of champion he is, because even if you dislike him, you enjoy tuning into an Adesanya press conference. You enjoy tuning into Adesanya interviews because he has an interesting personality. Whether or not you like him, he has an interesting personality. Would you rather listen to an Adesanya interview going into the fight with Alex Pereira, the rematch that is? Would you rather, if you have two options, two videos in your YouTube feed, Adesanya's media day scrum, and assume you've never seen any of them before, going into the Alex Pereira rematch, okay? Or would you rather watch Alexandre Pantoja's media scrum going into the fight with Kai Kara France? You're going to say, oh, obviously Adesanya. Yeah, but you don't like Adesanya, right? A lot of you don't. Some of you do. But even the people that don't, you're tuning into that, and you're actually interested. And Adesanya used to talk shit, and I used to say, you know what? He's underratedly entertaining. He has some stinkfests in the cage. He's got some great KOs, but he's entertaining on the mic, and he makes you care about his fights. Same thing with Dricus Duplessis. Beef with Sean Strickland. Beef with Israel Adesanya. That's entertaining. We're missing that. We are really, really missing that these days. I feel like the only one that's actually doing a decent job right now is Ilia Topuria, because, you have Makhachev, he does a little bit of trash talking, but I think Ilia does a little bit more consciously. And you have people saying, I want Ilia to get humbled. Like, you're not smart enough to tell that he's clearly like a humble, well-meaning guy, like a decent guy. Just because he talks a little bit of shit, you think he's like this guy's a piece of shit, man. Like, come on, man. Ilia Topuria, he talks shit, but it's very clear that he respects all of his opponents. He doesn't make things personal. And how could you not root for a guy that's undefeated, okay, that has all that momentum, that's knocking everyone out cold? No, but I just want Charles to humble him, man. I just want 35-year-old old vet Charles to humble him, man. Okay, well, like, this is kind of the problem. It's like anyone that talks shit these days, the fans are like, they need to get humbled. But then it's like they're going to complain when the press conferences fucking suck, okay? And I really miss the 2010s, man. Some of you guys know this, but the way that I even started the UFC was through finding John Jones and Daniel Cormier's face-to-face, not the one that they did in person with Rogan, but that famous one where they think they're off the air and, DC's like, I should spit in your face. And John Jones is like, I would absolutely kill you if you did that. That's what brought me to the UFC. That's what made me a UFC fan way back in the day. That was right before they first fought. And I remember, back even in 2018, you had guys like Conor McGregor that were talking shit. You had Kevin Lee that was talking a little bit of shit. Tony Ferguson. I don't know if you guys were watching at the time, but if you were, you'll know what I'm talking about. The media scrum that Tony Ferguson did before UFC 229 was one of the most entertaining media scrum interviews I've ever seen in my entire fucking life. And I was a Tony fan, but that made Tony Ferguson my favorite fighter at the time. Okay? That's what we're missing. Bisping, people didn't love Bisping back in the day, but Bisping used to talk shit, man. Remember Bisping and GSP going back and forth? And he actually pissed GSP off a little bit. We're missing that. We had that even in a couple of fights a couple of years ago. But think about it. What does the future look like? What does the present look like? Now that Adesanya's career is winding down and he's at that point where he's no longer the champ, I think some of his competitive edge is no longer there, that competitive drive, and therefore he's at that state where he's more kumbaya with everything, right? Dricus du Plessis, I think him and Hamzat are going to chalk shit a little bit. That should be pretty fun. Dricus is underrated at it. So Dricus is one of the only guys that's doing it these days too, but Dricus is more of, he'll do it if the opponent is the kind of person to get into it, right? He'll do it as he's like a counter striker style of trash talker. You know what I mean? So it's hard to just consider Dricus a big trash talker, but either way, we need more Max Holloway trash talkers, meaning Avalanche. They go first. We need that. I miss that. I miss the 2010s, man. I miss the 2010s when you had Tony Ferguson and Kevin Lee talking shit to each other. And Kevin was getting big brothered by Tony Ferguson. We don't get that shit anymore, man. Like the stars these days, O'Malley, the Sugar Show. You know how they marketed O'Malley. He was supposed to be like the Bantamweight McGregor. And it's like, O'Malley hates interviews. It's like part of the culture these days for young fighters to this is not about the media day. I didn't sign up to be a fighter to talk. Some of them literally hate this shit. And listen, I understand. Why is this fucking blurry? Come on! Hey! Why is this blurry? Hey, okay. But these days it's like, dude, every new star, every guy that's next up, you watch their interviews and they're like fucking it's not even in their mind that they should think about potentially playing up their personality or adding a little bit of fun trash talk. That's what Ilya does. Right? He was saying, listen, I love Max Holloway, but he's taken a lot of losses and he's very good at losing, and I'm sure he'll bounce back. That's all you have to do. You don't need to go crazy with it. Patchy mix, right? I was kind of hyped to see the UFC hold it down and patchy mix. All the hardcore fans, all the wannabe hardcore fans, they had to be wrong about that. I was kind of happy that they were wrong, but when Patchy Mix was at the press conference for UFC 316, I really liked that style of trash talk. He didn't say anything specific that was that interesting. It was just that he was talking very high volume, very loud, brash, cocky, right? Now that I think of it, one of the best periods of MMA was that era. And you know what? The UFC took advantage of it. We all want the UFC to do more face-to-face, sit-down interviews with fighters, like they did with Darren Till and Jorge Masvidal, like they even did online with Max Holloway and Ilia Topuria. The thing is, they may not think that they have anything to work with. Back in the day, McGregor was like the guy that was taking it upon himself to be a big trash talker, right? He made it a purpose to sell his fights that way. And the UFC saw that and they were like, you know what? This is awesome. I'm going to promote him. The other fighters saw that the UFC was promoting him a lot. And so they wanted to start trash talking. And as soon as they started trash talking, the UFC looked at it and they were like, this Kevin Lee guy's talking shit. Let me do a face-to-face interview with him and Tony Ferguson. TJ and Dominic Cruz are talking shit. Let me do a face-to-face with these guys, right? That's what the UFC will do if they have fighters that are going to talk a little bit of shit. Now, they never did it with Colby Covington, a face-to-face sit-down or a Zoom interview with him and its opponent or whatever. But still, I really miss it. I really miss it. And I think that if fighters don't take it upon themselves to trash talk, we're not necessarily going to get the UFC to give us those, interesting face-offs, right? Those face-off interviews. It's not all on the UFC. I think one of the reasons why it feels like things aren't as hype anymore, it also has to do with the fighters. And it's part of the new culture that, the trash talk is cringe. It's lame. If you're trying to be someone you're not, it's lame, it's cringe, right? But then the sport is going to be inherently more boring. Fights are going to be less hype. I mean, sometimes the most exciting fights aren't between the fighters with the most interesting fight styles. I mean, remember how excited we were for Strickland versus Adesanya? We knew Strickland didn't have the most dynamite fight style. Adesanya, he's got an okay fight style. I'm not going to say he's as boring as Sean Strickland, but he had a couple of stinkers, but we were super excited for it because of the trash talk, right? That was a part of it. These days, I mean, we don't really have a lot of that. There are no viral trash talking moments that brings anyone new into the sport. And for us fans, there's no trash talker that makes us really excited to see some of these fighters, even if they're not the most entertaining. I mean, even the entertaining fighters, you don't want to watch a lot of their interviews because they're boring, right? I mean, the interviews suck, the questions usually suck, but they're not making an effort to be entertaining as well. And so, yeah. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Until next time.
What is up, guys? It's Lucas Tracy MMA here, and I want to let you guys know that I have something for you, and that's a real food cookbook. Because if you're walking around looking like Chris Dawkins, you got to get that weight off. I don't know if you think you're DC or something, but most people usually don't perform at their best when they're walking around with 30% body fat. So if you're trying to lean out and you still want to eat good, tasty, comfort foods, well, you could check out my Real Food Cookbook, because I've made it a purpose to have good, tasty foods that you can still eat just without all the processed bullshit, without all the processed ingredients like soy and seed oils. So guys, check out the Real Food Cookbook. Use code MMA for 30% off. The link is in my description. Don't forget that discount.